There is a moment in every life that tests the very foundation of who we think we are. It is not the moment of triumph, not the moment of recognition or reward. It is the moment of profound failure, of devastating loss, of facing something so crushing that the only rational response would be to give up entirely. For Richard Feynman, that moment came in June of 1945, in a small room in Albuquerque, New Mexico, far from the laboratories and lecture halls where he had made his name. His first wife, Arline, had been battling tuberculosis for years, a slow and merciless disease that had consumed her body and tested their love in ways that words cannot adequately capture. Feynman had been working on the Manhattan Project, the top-secret effort to build the atomic bomb, and he had been commuting back and forth to see her in a sanatorium, spending whatever time he could at her bedside. And then, one day, she died. She was only 25 years old. Feynman was 27. He had loved her with a passion that bordered on obsession, and when she was gone, something inside him broke. He did not handle it well, at least not in the way that people might expect. He did not weep openly or seek comfort from friends. Instead, he did something that seemed almost inhuman. He went back to work. He threw himself into the mathematics of the atomic bomb, as if the sheer complexity of the calculations could drown out the silence in his heart. He did not attend her funeral because he could not bear to see her buried. For months, he walked through the world as a ghost, going through the motions of a life that had lost all its color. But then, something strange happened. He began to have dreams about her. And in those dreams, she was alive, and he would reach out to touch her, only to wake up to the cold reality of her absence. And then, one night, he had a dream that changed everything. He dreamed that he was walking through a beautiful meadow, and Arline was there, and she said to him, "Richard, you are holding on to me. You need to let me go." When he woke up, he wept. He wept for the first time since she had died. And he understood in that moment that grief is not something you get over. It is something you learn to carry. This is the story that Feynman rarely told, the story that reveals the man behind the legend. It is not a story about physics. It is not a story about brilliance. It is a story about the human heart, about the capacity to love and lose, about the strange and mysterious ways that we heal. Feynman had lost the person he loved most in the world, and yet he did not let that loss define him. He did not become bitter. He did not become cynical. He did not close himself off from the world. He did the opposite. He opened himself even more widely, embracing life with a kind of reckless joy that astonished everyone who knew him. He started learning to draw. He started playing bongo drums. He started writing love letters that he would never send. He lived as if the only sin was to waste a single moment of existence. And this is perhaps the most profound lesson that Feynman has to offer us. It is not enough to be curious. It is not enough to be honest. It is not enough to be skeptical. To truly live a life worthy of the name, you must also be brave. You must be willing to love, even though love ends in loss. You must be willing to try, even though trying ends in failure. You must be willing to hope, even though hope is the most fragile of human emotions. Feynman understood this better than almost anyone because he had experienced the darkest depths of human despair and had somehow found his way back to the light. This is not to say that Feynman was a saint. He was not. He was a complicated, sometimes contradictory, often difficult man. He had a fierce temper. He could be arrogant. He could be dismissive of people he considered intellectually inferior. He was, by his own admission, a man of strong passions and equally strong opinions. But he was also deeply, profoundly human. And it is precisely because he was so human that his words and his example continue to resonate with us, decades after his death. He did not speak from an ivory tower. He spoke from the trenches, from the messy, beautiful, painful, exhilarating trenches of real life. Let me tell you another story. In 1981, Feynman received a letter from a young man named Robert, who was dying of cancer. Robert had been an artist before his illness, and he had always been fascinated by physics. He wrote to Feynman, not asking for pity, not asking for reassurance, but asking a question that had been haunting him. He asked, "What is the meaning of it all?" Feynman's reply is one of the most moving documents in the history of science. He wrote, "There is no meaning. That is the meaning. The universe is vast and cold and indifferent, and it does not care about you or me or anyone else. And that is precisely what makes it so beautiful. Because if there is no meaning that is given to us, then we are free to create our own meaning." He did not offer false comfort. He did not promise an afterlife or a cosmic purpose. He offered something much more valuable. He offered the truth, and he offered the freedom that comes with it. This is the heart of Feynman's philosophy. It is a philosophy of radical responsibility. You are not a puppet of fate. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a human being with a mind that can think and a heart that can feel, and you have the power to decide what your life means. You have the power to decide what is worth caring about, what is worth fighting for, what is worth loving. You have the power to decide every single day whether you will let the darkness win or whether you will choose to be a source of light. Feynman chose to be a source of light. He chose to be curious. He chose to be honest. He chose to be joyful. He chose to be kind. And he did all of this not because he had to, but because he wanted to, because he had tasted the alternative and he had found it wanting. Think about that for a moment. What does it mean to choose joy when the world is full of suffering? What does it mean to choose curiosity when the universe is full of indifference? What does it mean to choose honesty when the truth is often painful? It means that you are not a passive observer of your own life. It means that you are an active participant, a creator, a builder, a poet of your own existence. Feynman understood this better than almost anyone because he had been forced to confront the most fundamental question of all. How do you go on living when the person you love most is gone? And his answer was not a sophisticated theory. It was not a mathematical formula. It was a decision, a simple, profound, life-altering decision. He would go on living. He would go on loving. He would go on discovering. He would go on being a human being in all its messy, glorious, heartbreaking fullness. This brings us to another crucial aspect of Feynman's legacy. He believed that the most important thing you could do with your life was to contribute to the sum of human knowledge. Not because knowledge was valuable in itself, but because it was a way of connecting with other people. He saw science as a communal endeavor, a conversation that had been going on for centuries and would continue long after he was gone. He said, "The thing is, most people think that science is about facts. It's not. Science is about a way of thinking. It's about doubting. It's about questioning. It's about being willing to change your mind when you are presented with new evidence. And that way of thinking is not just for scientists. It is for everyone." He believed that the scientific method was not just a tool for understanding the physical world, but a way of living an honest and meaningful life. It was a way of saying, "I do not know, but I am willing to find out." It was a way of saying, "I might be wrong and I am not afraid to admit it." It was a way of saying, "I will not accept easy answers. I will not accept comfortable lies. I will not accept the world as it is given to me. I will question it. I will test it. I will try to understand it." He also believed deeply in the importance of play. He said, "I have a friend who is an artist, and he has a very strange view of science. He says, science is all about taking things apart, and that destroys the beauty. And I say to him, no, it's not about taking things apart. It's about seeing the connections. It's about seeing the hidden order. It's about finding the beauty that is already there, even if you cannot see it at first." He would spend hours just watching things. He would watch the way a drop of water fell from a faucet. He would watch the way a leaf curled in the wind. He would watch the way his bongo drums vibrated under his fingers. He took nothing for granted. He saw wonder in the mundane. And he insisted that we could all do the same if only we were willing to pay attention. In the last years of his life, Feynman was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. He knew he was dying. He knew that the clock was ticking. And yet, he did not become bitter. He did not become resentful. He did not waste his final days on regrets. Instead, he did what he had always done. He kept learning. He kept asking questions. He kept finding joy in the simple act of understanding. He wrote a letter to a friend describing his last few months. He said, "I have lived a wonderful life. I have loved deeply. I have been loved in return. I have learned more than I could have ever imagined. And I am grateful. I am so grateful." There is a humility in those words, a wisdom that comes not from years of study, but from years of living. He was not afraid of death. He was not afraid of the unknown. He had made his peace with the universe, not because he had all the answers, but because he had learned to live with the questions. This is the final, most profound lesson of Richard Feynman. It is not about physics. It is not about intelligence. It is not about success. It is about the kind of person you choose to be in the face of a universe that is vast, indifferent, and ultimately incomprehensible. It is about choosing to be curious, even when it would be easier to be cynical. It is about choosing to be honest, even when it would be easier to lie. It is about choosing to be brave, even when it would be easier to hide. It is about choosing to love, even when love breaks your heart. And it is about finding a way, always to say, "Isn't that interesting?" even when the answer is painful. Feynman once gave a lecture called "The Value of Science." In it, he said that science has three great values. First, it offers the thrill of discovery, the sheer joy of finding something out for the first time. Second, it produces knowledge that can be used to help people, to cure diseases, to build better lives. And third, it teaches us humility. It teaches us that we do not know everything. It teaches us that we are not the center of the universe. It teaches us that there is always more to learn, always more to discover, always more to wonder about. He said, "I think it is much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers that might be wrong." And that is the final gift of Richard Feynman. He gave us permission to be ignorant. He gave us permission to be wrong. He gave us permission to be curious. He gave us permission to be human. So now, as we come to the end of this reflection on the mind of Richard, let me ask you the same question that Feynman asked himself every single day. What are you curious about? Not what you are supposed to be curious about. Not what other people expect you to be curious about. Not what is useful or productive or profitable. What are you genuinely, deeply, obsessively curious about? The answer to that question is the key to everything. It is the key to your happiness. It is the key to your purpose. It is the key to your life. Because when you follow your curiosity, you are not just learning something. You are becoming yourself. You are becoming the person you were always meant to be. And if you find yourself thinking, "But I don't know what I am curious about," then Feynman would tell you something else. He would tell you to start small. Go for a walk. Look at a flower. Watch a bird. Listen to a piece of music. Read a book about something you know nothing about. Follow a random thread of interest. Let your mind wander. Let yourself be surprised. And do not worry if it leads nowhere. The destination is not the point. The point is the journey. The point is the act of paying attention. The point is the act of caring. Feynman lived his entire life as an act of attention. He paid attention to the world around him, to the people he loved, to the questions that haunted him, to the beauty that was everywhere, hidden in plain sight. He did not let the noise of the world distract him. He did not let the expectations of others define him. He did not let the fear of failure stop him. He just paid attention. And he found, in that attention, a life of meaning, a life of joy, a life of profound and lasting significance. That is the mind of Richard. That is the invitation. The universe is vast, cold, and indifferent. But that does not mean your life has to be. You have the power to create meaning. You have the power to choose joy. You have the power to be curious, honest, and brave. You have the power to love, even when love ends in loss. You have the power to try, even when trying ends in failure. You have the power to hope, even when hope is the most fragile of human emotions. You have the power to watch the bird, not just to memorize its name. And in that watching, in that paying attention, in that act of deep and abiding curiosity, You will find everything you have ever been looking for. So go ahead. Pay attention. Ask the question. Follow the thread. Make the mistake. Admit the error. Try the new dish. Let go of what is holding you back. Embrace the unknown. And remember, always, the words of Richard Feynman. I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. That is the mind of Richard. That is the only motivation you will ever need.